Hello and welcome to our 12th session in this modifier section, and in this session we are now going to explore about our next modifier that comes after the hook modifier, and that is the Laplacian Deform Modifier. This is a little complicated, and to understand this I am going to now build a scene. So I am going to come into the Blender and I have my default cube here. Select the cube, press numpad 1, come into the front view, press S and type 6 to scale it up by 6 times and press enter. Now next I will press tab and I will press 3 to come into the face selection mode, and I will click on this front face over here and I will press X and I am going to delete the face. Now I have a structure like walls and I am going to press tab and let us add a little amount of thickness to it. So I will come into my modifier, add modifier, generate, and I am going to add solidify, and I will add about 0.04 thickness wall over here. So I got a structure like this. Now next I need a pole here and a light hanging here. So to create this I will press shift A, and in the mesh I am now going to add a cylinder. Now I will press tab, I will press S and scale it down by 0.1. Then I will press scale S, then Z, and along the Z I will scale it up by 20 times and press enter. So now I got a structure like a pole here. Now I will press tab, come into the object mode. Now I will press numpad 1, press GZ and move it to the top, and to precisely place this I will press Z and come into the wireframe mode, and I am going to make this place just touching the wall like this. So it just touches the wall here. So this is a pole hanging from the wall. I will now select this, come here and name the cylinder as pole, and I am going to name the cube as, I will double click cube and I am going to name this as walls, and then I will press shift A and I am now going to add a UV sphere, and I am going to call this sphere as light, and here I will press tab, press 1 and come into vertex selection mode, and I am going to draw a box like this and select all the vertices at the bottom like this. Press numpad 1 and then press X and choose delete vertices. Press tab. Now I have a semi sphere like this, and I am now going to press Z and come into the solid state, and then I will come into add modifier, generate, and I will add a solidify modifier even for this. And I am also going to press tab, press A to select everything, press S and press 0.5 to scale it down by half the amount. I will press tab now, press numpad 1, and now I will press GZ and move it to the top like this and attach this to the pole like this. So I have the pole here and I have my cover here. So I have this structure. Now what I will do is I will press numpad 1 and I will here come and select this light, which is a point light. Press G, drag it and place it inside this, see here. I will move it here. I will also press 3 and come into the side view, press Z and come into wireframe mode, and I will press GY and move it to the left like this. And in the front view also I will see that this lamp is here. I will press GZ and put it at the center here. I have two lights here, so I am going to rename this light as light mesh, and then I am now going to select the light, then shift press light mesh, and again click on this with control to make this the active selection, and now I will press control P and choose set parent to object. So now what happens is if I select this and move, even my light moves along with it. So I have made my light a child of this light mesh. Now after this, as I move this, I want this pole to move. So for that I will press numpad 1 and I will zoom it. I will select the pole, I will press tab, and the first thing is I have to add more geometry here. I will press Ctrl R and I will roll the mouse and I will click twice I will open this loop cut and I am going to add some 40 loop cuts here and press enter. Come zoom it in, and in the wireframe mode with the toggle X-ray on, I will select all the vertices on the top. See, I have selected all the vertices. Then I will press Ctrl H and I am going to choose the option hook to new object, and immediately an empty is created, you can see here, and I am going to call this as top controller. I will now press tab, and if I select the pole, now here you have a new modifier added here, hook empty, and I am going to call this as top hook and press enter. So now I have added a hook at the top. Now similarly, I will press numpad 1, move down, select this pole, zoom it, and press tab and press Alt A to deselect everything, and in the vertex selection mode I will select all the vertices at the bottom here, press Ctrl H, and I am going to hook it to another object, and this second empty I am going to call this as bottom controller, and then press tab, select the pole, and for that pole, for the second hook here, I am going to call this as bottom hook, and then I am now going to select this bottom controller. With shift pressed, I am going to select my light mesh. See that light mesh is the active object, then press Ctrl P and I am going to parent it. So now what happens is, if I deselect everything, select this lamp, and if I press Z and come into the solid state mode, if I select this lamp, if I press G and move it, see what is happening, only the vertices at the bottom are moving. I will right click and cancel this movement. So now as I swing this light, I want this pole to actually bend and change its direction along with this lamp. So now this is where we are going to make use of Laplacian Deform Modifier. So in our previous example of how we created the switch connected to an Alexa speaker, we used a curve, and because of a curve we didn't have this issue. But in this case we are using a mesh, and when I use a mesh and when I press G and when I move it, see only the hooked vertices are moving and other vertices are not affected by it. So now I want the other vertices to move in accordance with this movement. It has to bend or it has to move in accordance with this movement. So I will right click and cancel it, and to do this, so the science behind this technique is, if I press tab and if I select the pole, press tab and come over here, I have the vertices selected here, and if I press Z and come into wireframe mode, and now as I move these vertices, I have to make the adjacent vertices move in accordance with this movement. And you might remember that in actually when we are working in edit mode, we use the proportional editing and we are going to move it to move the other vertices. Whereas in this case, because we are working in object mode, I cannot use the proportional editing. And in this case, we are going to take help from a mathematician, and his name is Pierre-Simon Laplace. So this Pierre-Simon Laplace was a French mathematician and a scholar who lived between 1749 to 1827, and he did a great contribution to mathematics and calculus, and he designed a formula called as the Laplace operator or the Laplace equation, and this is a calculus equation and it is indicated by the symbol with this reverse triangle. We use this symbol to represent this Laplace operator or this Laplacian. This is a differential operator. So, this is basically used to calculate the position of one vertex with respect to another corresponding vertex. So, as one vertex move, how the neighboring vertices are going to move. This is calculated using this Laplace operator. This is a complicated formula. However, we need not worry about this formula. What we have to just do is come into Blender. Now, I will select this pole, and to do this mathematical calculation, I will come into modifiers, add modifier, and in deform, now I am going to add this Laplacian deform modifier. Now, as soon as I add this Laplacian deform modifier, and if I try to move it, as of now you are not seeing any effect of this, because for this mathematical formula to operate, I have to give it an input, and the input is the vertices that we are going to move. And to give this input, I am now going to select the pole. I am going to press numpad 1, and then I will press shift S, I will press tab, I will press alt A to deselect everything. Now, I am going to press Control H, and this time I will select hook, top hook, then again Control H, and I am going to select the bottom hook. So, I am going to select all the vertices that I have used in my hook. I will come into my data modifier, and in the vertex group I will create a new group, and I am going to call this as hook and click assign with the weight of 1. Now, if I press alt A and deselect everything, and if I click select, if it gets selected, then it means that the vertex group has been correctly aligned. Now, I will press tab, come into object mode, and with the pole selected I will come back to modifier, and in the Laplacian modifier I have one option here called as the anchor weight, and in the anchor weight I am going to select these vertices, and you have a feature here called as bind, and when I click on bind, it got bound, and I am now seeing the unbind here. It means that it has been binded. I have selected my light mesh. I will come into solid state view, Z solidify, and now if I move this, you can see how my pole is responding. See, the adjacent vertices are moving in accordance with my lamp here. See, it is moving along with the lamp, and even if I rotate this, see, now when I am rotating it, it is rotating around the axis here. What I want is I will press tab here, and I will come into wireframe mode, and here I am going to select one vertex at the top of this. See here, I will select a vertex which is here. So, and then I will press now shift S, and I am going to add this cursor to selected. So, my cursor moved to this selected point, then I will press tab, and with this light mesh selected, I will come to object set origin to 3D cursor. So, now the origin point of light mesh moved over here, then I will press shift S, and I will move my cursor back to world origin, and now if I select this and rotate it, it is going to rotate around this axis. This is how we set the origin point. Now, the thing here is, if you press G and as you move this, you can see how my light is moving. So, to see this better, I will come into the render view, and you can see in the render view how my light is falling in the area, and if I press G and move it, this is moving. I will right click, and to see the top area, because my pole is not at all visible. So, for that I am going to press shift A, and I am going to add one more light here, point light, and I am going to now press G, Z and move it to the top here. I will press G, X and slightly move it to the side. G, Z and Z and slightly move it down like this, and I am going to come into the light and I will set its wattage to around 100 watts so that I can see the pole here. And now if I select this lamp, and as I move the lamp, you can see that how my pole is moving. So this is the application of Laplacian modifier. I will right click and stop this. Now I will come into file, save as, and I am going to now in my folder give it the name as 04_12, and I am going to call this as Laplacian modifier room, and I am going to click save. In our edit operations in Blender chapter, when we were working on it, we had created in our 311 session, we had created this headphone. So if you remember, I will share this video link with you. I will come into Blender, I will go to file, open this file 3_11 headset.blend. I will double click to open it. So we had designed this headset in our previous session. We had grouped it and actually parented it to an empty called headphone. So I will now come here, file, save as, and I am now going to save this in my 4 modifier section. Give it the name as 4_headphone_hook Laplacian modifier, and I am going to click save. Now I will select this empty object, that is the headphone, press X, and I am going to delete it. Now here basically I have the hood, and this hood in the modifier we had applied a mirror modifier. I am going to click here apply, and we had applied a subdivision modifier, and I am going to click apply, so that this is now a single mesh object. If I press tab, you can now see this is a single mesh object. Then similarly now I am going to come into my speaker, and in the modifier I am going to first apply this subdivision, then I will apply this mirror, and now these two speakers are now here as a single object. Now I will press numpad 1, and selecting the speaker, I will now come into wireframe mode. See that you are in the toggle X-ray mode. Press tab and come into edit mode, and in vertex selection mode I will draw a square, and I am going to select all the vertices of this left speaker. Then I will press P. You will get this separate selection menu, and if I click on selection and if I press tab and come into object mode, you can now see that you have speaker and speaker 001. Speaker, I am going to call this as right speaker, and the other speaker I am going to call this as left speaker. And then I am also going to select this perforated cloth here, and I am now going to actually come into my modifier. I am going to apply the solidify modifier and the mirror modifier for this. Again I will press numpad 1, press tab, and in the vertex selection mode select all the perforated material on the left hand side like this, and then press P and separate the selection, then press tab, and now I am going to call the original perforated cloth as right cloth, and the another one here as the left cloth. Now I am going to select this left cloth in object mode. With shift pressed I will select the left speaker. See that left speaker is the active selection. Go to object and choose join. So these two becomes one single object. Similarly here I will select the right cloth. With shift pressed I will select the right speaker, and then I will come into object and I am going to choose join or press Ctrl J. So now I have a right speaker, I have a left speaker and the hood. So we just have 3 items over here, and I will press numpad 1 and come into the front view. Now naturally when you are using a headphone, the user is going to select these two speakers, and when he actually moves this speaker, I want this hood to move, and when he moves the right speaker, this hood should move. So, to create this movement, now I am going to select my hood, then press tab, and I am going to select all the vertices here. So, I will just zoom in and I am going to select these vertices here, complete vertices here, and I will temporarily switch off my left speaker. So, I have selected all the vertices here like this. See, I have made this selection, and then I am now going to press Ctrl H, and I am going to create a hook. I am going to select this hook to new object, select this empty, and I am going to call this as left hood. Press numpad 1, and similarly now I will move over here, and I am going to now hide the right speaker, and press numpad 1, draw a box and select all the vertices on the right hand side like this. Again press Ctrl H and choose hook to new object, and this empty I am going to now call this as right hood hook. Okay, now I will press 1 and come into the front view. Now I will press tab and come into the object mode, and I will enable both left speaker and right speaker. Now I am going to select this left hood hook. With shift pressed, I will select the left speaker. I will control click on left speaker to make it the active selection. Then I will press Ctrl P and choose this option, set parent to object keep transform. So now empty is now a child of this speaker, and similarly I will select this right hood hook. I will shift select the right speaker, press Ctrl P, and I am going to parent it like this. So now if you just see here, I have left speaker and right speaker. If I select the left speaker and if I move it, you can now see that the attached vertices are moving, but the actual headphone is not getting actually deformed as I wish. See, this is not naturally moving. I will right click and cancel it. Similarly, if I select the right speaker and move it, see, this is not moving correctly. So for that, I will right click, cancel the movement, press numpad 1, and now I am going to select the hood, and with the hood selected, I will now come into the modifier, and I have two hooks here added. For the left hood hook, I am going to call this as hook left, and for the right hood hook, I am going to call this as hook right. And after this, I will come into add modifier deform, and I am going to add this Laplacian modifier. And once I add this modifier, nothing is going to happen because I have to give the anchor weights. And to select the anchor weights, I will select this hood, press tab and come into the edit mode, Alt A to deselect everything, and now I will press Ctrl H, and this time I am going to select the hook left, then again Ctrl H and select the hook right. I have selected these two hooks, and now I am going to come into my data modifier. I am going to create a new vertex group, and I am going to call this as hook, and I will choose assign with a weight of 1. And after I assign it, I will press tab, come into the object mode, and with this hook selected, come into the modifier, and in the modifier now in the anchor weight, I am going to select hook, and I am going to click on this bind button. So it will take some time to bind because there are more vertices, and once it is binded, now if I select the right speaker, I will press Z and come into solid state view, select the right speaker, and when I move it, you can now see that my hook gets distorted depending upon its movement. Similarly, here if I select it and move it, see, this is going to move like this. So even if I rotate it, you can see how the distortion is happening. So right now here, the anchor point of this speaker is here. So I will select it, I will come into object, set origin, origin to geometry. Now if I rotate it, see it rotates along its axis like this. Similarly, I will select the right speaker, object, set origin, origin to geometry, and now if I rotate it, see how my hood is changing depending upon these things. So when a person is going to wear the headset, when he expands it like this and when he rotates it like this, see now the hook is going to move correspondingly. And now to control it better, see whenever I am moving it, my center area should not move. So for that I will press Ctrl Z and cancel all my movement now. Then I am going to select this hood, press tab, press Z and come into wireframe mode, and I am going to select these three set of vertices here, and I am going to come into my data modifier and I am going to click on assign. So I have added it to my hook group, press tab and come into object mode, and now if I select this and when I move it, see in the center it is not moving and you have only the movement happening on the left hand side. This is locked, and when you are moving, so this is looking more natural. I will just press Z, come into the solid state view, and now I have a headphone where when I animate this movement, I get the actual simulation of a real headphone like this. So now if I rotate it, or see if I rotate this and when I create this, you can see how the deformation is happening. So here Laplacian modifier, although it appears to be a simple modifier, this uses a lot of resources of your computer, and if your mesh has too many vertices, it may take a lot of time for this binding and unbinding to happen. And this is one of the best modifier that is present inside the Blender, and it is based on the mathematical calculation of Laplacian operator. And for mathematicians, this will be a very good example to explain about this Laplacian operator. So Blender and calculus are linked to each other. If someone wants to learn calculus, differentiation, integration and trigonometry, then in Blender you can visually see the effect of your sin theta, cos theta, tan theta, and this series we will be starting shortly, wherein you are going to explore how teachers can teach mathematics difficult subject like differentiation, integration, calculus, and also this trigonometry using Blender. So this is just an example for that, and with this I am going to conclude this session. So I have saved the file, and in our next session let us continue with our other modifiers in this deform section.